You have my respect, Stark. When I'm done, half of humanity will still be alive.
Stop! Spare his life, and I will give you the stone.
No tricks.
Don't.
Did we just lose? Why would you do that?
We're in the Endgame now.
My hard drive crashed, so here we are a year later. Enjoy! There's so much I could say about Avengers Endgame, but after watching it and rewatching it and watching it again and then rewatching it after I rewatched it several times, I probably watched it almost as many times as Doctor Strange did. It took me back to being about 13 years old, reading various epic comic crossovers.
Executioner song. Executioner song.
One such crossover that comes to mind is Onslaught. As a kid, I stopped regularly reading comics just after Onslaught. Truth be told, it was another major Marvel crossover around that time that did me in, the Spider-Man clone saga.
Saga?
Returning to Onslaught, it was the last story that really touched my heart as a kid, at least comic book story that is. The story ends with the mainstay Marvel heroes, most of the big names, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, entering a sort of black hole created by or because of Onslaught. In the context of the comic, it's a beautiful and powerful moment of sacrifice. In reality, they were sucking those characters into a pocket dimension so the guys who left a few years ago to form Image could revamp them. For the record, I didn't care for most of what they did, with the exception of Jim Lee's version of the Fantastic Four, which I loved. There's a great moment at the end of Onslaught where Iron Man grabs Doctor Doom and drags him into the void with the heroes. And I felt it again when I watched Avengers Endgame. I remember how I felt reading that as a kid. I don't know if I cried in 1996, but I wept in 2019. Why I wept is more complex than just how the stories ended. One big factor is that being a parent is so central to the power of Endgame, in particular being a father to a daughter, which I have the privilege of being myself, a father to 2 daughters.
Me, I'm his daughter.
I cannot deny that as a factor. However, at least part of those tears were not rooted in my love for my daughters, which is great, and some of it was for that fact, but not all of it. But some of it was rooted in my love for my action figures, which, while supervised, I share with those daughters. The first big comic book crossovers came in the mid-1980s. Crisis on Infinite Earths at DC, which is amazing by the way, and Secret Wars at Marvel, which is important but honestly isn't that great. What was great about Secret Wars, from a kid buying toys perspective, was that it was all designed to sell toys. To be fair, that's probably why it was a not very good comic book, as it was designed to sell toys. Those were my first Marvel toys.
Marvel supervillains and superheroes figures, each sold separately.
The Secret Wars Spider-Man was my first Spider-Man action figure ever. I still have the same one today. I used to try to redraw the lines on his head that came off from play. Same guy, all these years later. Still my favorite toy. A few years later, Toy Biz created a spectacularly extensive line of Marvel action figures. A quick aside, the Marvel cartoons of the 1990s were similarly all connected. It was awesome being 10 in 1992.
You seem kind of cute in a creepy sort of way.
I had and still have a great many of those action figures, and every Christmas, I would restock my collection. I love vehicles and playsets as much as any kid, but I usually prefer the volume of individual action figures over those more expensive accessories. My mom, always taking care of things way ahead of time, would buy all of our gifts at the end of summer. when they were put on layaway.
Legends little folk know. Hills is where the toys are.
Bill's Toy Layaway. Just 10% down. A small service charge. Lays away toys, little and large. Hundreds of toys. Express layaway too. So layaway's even easier for you. Remember, Bill's Toy Layaway. One reason they're different and why they say
Hills is where the toys are.
At low prices every day.
When they weren't put on layaway, she'd take them home and put them in her closet.
Tag will never be the same with Worlds of Wonders laser tag game.
I'd say I have no idea why I was so patient to wait so long for all of these toys when I know exactly what they are, know exactly where they are in the house, and can just go look at them but I can't play with them. But I know how I did all that. I made it a storyline. As a kid, I didn't just play with toys. I used my action figures to tell my own epic storylines. These stories span months and usually concluded around Christmas. Part of those stories involved a smaller group of heroes battling insurmountable odds, only to finally, on Christmas Day, release their allies and maybe a few new enemies, to finally have victory, freeing them from their carbonite-like boxes, escaping their deep freeze. However, there was always a cost, such as the year I broke Wolverine and his arm fell off. Even the broken toys became part of the story. For my toys, victory came with a price. Each Christmas was my Avengers Endgame. Now, all these years later, I make my kids wait, knowing their Christmas presents are stored in the closet. Wonder what stories they're gonna tell. Merry Christmas.
How does this fit on his head?